So, welcome everyone to today's Confucius Institute Chinese Corner. The focus today is about street food in China. My name is George. I work with the Confucius Institute, and the reason I'm doing this, I do like to try to give a little bit of context of why there's a British guy talking about Chinese culture. The reason I've been looking and leading some of these sessions on Chinese culture. First of all, it is very useful and interesting to have a foreign perspective on things in China, things that for many Chinese people just appear normal, rather than something that we would see as different or unusual or worthy of discussion. And also these experiences come from the 11 years that I spent in China working and living and trying many different Chinese foods from various parts of the country. So a lot of these foods that I've chosen because either myself or my family have tried them. Some of these are very normal that I've had many times. So I'm very happy to try to share them. If there are any questions or anything that you would like to discuss or add to this discussion, please feel free to add them to the chat at any time today. I'm very happy to get sidetracked and to share and talk. I'd like this to be quite informal. And if there's anything you'd like to know or question, we can certainly discuss that any time. Welcome. We have a few more people. Welcome to everyone. So, as I say, let's get started. Before we, thank you with the chat. Ian Moore, Bukan Janela. Is anyone else having an issue watching? I'm afraid I'm not entirely sure what the issue might be there, Ian. So perhaps try to go out and come back in again. It might be. I'm afraid I'm afraid I'm not entirely sure what the issue might be. If anyone else has an issue with watching, please make sure we put it into the chat. We're always happy. So as ever, before I get into the forgive the pun, the meat of the discussion, a little bit of introduction about the Confucius Institute. So the Confucius Institute at Coventry University, Sorry, I'll start again. I was distracted by the chat there, Jen. I hope that picks up. The Confucius Institute at Coventry University, we are now a 5-year-old group. We are part of the Confucius Institute, we are based within Coventry University, and we work with a partner institute, Jiangxi University of Finance and Economics over in China. Our remit and our goal is to share and promote Chinese language and culture across the West Midlands. Our primary way of doing that is by running Chinese classes, which are available for all abilities from complete beginners to high-level language and near fluent language learners. And we build up people towards taking the Han Yu Shui Ping Kao Shi, or the HSK, which is the main Chinese language test. If you are looking to get any sort of qualification or recognition for your Mandarin ability, that would be the test for you. We also support local businesses and run sessions for them about introducing to Chinese business, understanding culture, and basically understanding how to deal with expectations between the cultural differences expected within UK business and Chinese business. If you have any questions for us, if you would like to get in touch, please use the Confucius Institute at coventry.ac.uk email. I'm sure because you are here, you have no doubt seen other ways to get in touch with us. And if there's anything that we can help or discuss, any topics that you might be interested to learn more about, please suggest them to us, and we are always happy to go and find experts within that area to share and promote. So let's get started. As I've said, now when it comes to Chinese street food, it's for people in the UK, and certainly myself growing up, going out to a restaurant was something, going out to eat was generally not the norm. It was something that was someone quite special. It's a little bit more expensive and people tend to eat more at home. Whereas when I was living in China, going out to eat was very normal. partly because of the accessibility and partly because the cost was very, very low, especially compared to going out to eat in the UK. There is a huge wealth of food available, and a lot of that, when the climate is appropriate, is literally on the street. So in the evenings, quite often the streets, or many parts of the streets, are full of stalls full of people selling things. And that's again, in the afternoon, in the evening, and even in the morning, there are various places that you will be able to go to get street food. The first one I've decided to look at is this one called xiaokao, or which we would say is a barbecue. And the reason I put this first, because was literally my first introduction to street food in China. It's actually the first kind of food I actually ate when I first arrived in China about 10 o'clock in the evening, and I was taken to an apartment where I was sharing with a couple of other young men, and the first thing they said was, right, we're going out, and we had barbecue, and it was very spicy, and I was very tired from the flight, but it was a very memorable first look. And so when we think of barbecue, as you can see in this picture, you will often have a long, thin fire and lots of food on skewers that are then. So, excuse me. So, xiaokao barbecue is massively, massively popular all across China, and I think we might have some of my Chinese colleagues who, if you are willing to add into the chat about your experience, I would very much welcome it. So there are food streets across China, but you can find these in many of the less busy streets. People will take over and have barbecue stations all around, and you will be able to smell them. You will be able to see the smoke coming off, and it's fantastic. It's very, very easy to go there, because what you would simply do is you would choose from a wide variety of food on these skewers. As you can see in this picture, there's a variety of vegetables, things like quail's eggs, mushrooms. There's a huge variety of meats. You could have fish, seafoods, tofu of all descriptions. There are huge amounts of food that you will be able to choose, and then literally they will charge you per skewer. Some of them would be just a few pence for something like the broccoli, up to maybe sort of maybe 10 yuan for like the one, some of the better meats. There might be some variety between different areas. So for example, in certain districts there might be much more lamb, and some barbecue would focus on various foods. My first takeaway from this experience was actually the spices and the flavors that are put on, because while they are cooked, before being cooked, quite often they are put into pepper and some seasonings, which are very often quite spicy. In fact, this leads to the first Chinese phrase that I ever learned beyond ni hao, which is hello. The single first one relates to, again, eating barbecue first. It was very, very spicy, and the first thing I was taught was to say bu yao la. Bu yao la means not spicy, or don't want spice. So something I'll never forget, and it's something that in various parts of China is a very useful phrase, because especially when we get towards the southern parts of China, high amounts of spice or large amounts of spicy food is the normal. And if you're not used to that, it can be a little bit dangerous. Living in Chongqing, for example, there was an idea that, oh, there's just a little bit of spice and it will, blow your mouth up. It's definitely something to get used to. So xiaokao, or barbecue, you can find this pretty much everywhere across China. It's massively popular. So looking at the department, so I would ask, so have any of you had any barbecue? I mean, Liang Fang, I see you in the in the attendees. If you'd like to share what type of thing that you would like and your opinion, and please correct me if you think that I'm going wrong. So looking again, the similar to Xiaokao, similar to barbecue is this next street food, which is malatong. Now, malatong is, well, the direct the direct translation or understanding there would be food in spicy boiled water. Now that would be fundamentally a soup. But this is similar to Xiaokao in a way. The idea here is that you would choose various skewers of the food and you give them to the stall owner and the chef, and they would have a broth, like a sort of large communal boiling broth, and this would then be in which they would cook the food and serve it. So this is similar in a way to the huoguo or hot pot that you can find around in China, where you have the raw food that you can choose which kind of food, and that would be put into a boiling soup or some hot oil into the middle, and it is cooked. It's cooked directly, and you can eat it. This is also generally spicy because there is usually the broth is a single broth that the stall holder would have, that you wouldn't necessarily have a choice of different things. It's just, this is going to be cooked in with all of the other food, and then you get it. This is not something that I would imagine perhaps vegetarians or vegans would be particularly interested in, as that broth you would have not a huge amount of you wouldn't want to know, you wouldn't really know what's in it, so it's best to just if you're not sure, I would avoid it. But as I said, it is very hot, very spicy, and in winter particularly this becomes, I think, very popular. You can also find stalls like this in quite often in student seen this quite often in student canteens across different universities. But I know this is one that's very, very popular. It's convenient and people tend to love it. I personally really enjoy the control you have on both the Xiaokao and the malatang of being able to choose exactly what you want, because I am something of a picky eater, but having the ability to just go around and pick up as the specific things that you want on the skewers, I really, really enjoy that. So moving on to the next ones. And remember, any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them if you have them in the comments. So the next one I'm looking at here is one that looks somewhat familiar. Now, jianbing guozi, or jianbing, for often people will call them, these are literally savory crepes. They're pancakes. So you would have no doubt seen these, and you can find similar things in stalls and places across the UK. This is another massively popular one that you've seen in cities up and down and to the west, to the east, to the north, to the south of China. This is popular, and you can, if you are interested in finding this one, this is perhaps one of the few ones that I know exactly where you could find one in Coventry, and across the UK. There is, so my wife and my daughter are quite fond of this, and they would sometimes go to Cannon Park. I think I've put this in the next slide, but I'll say it here. In Cannon Park, there is a Happy Lemon brand, and you can go and have some jianbing and try it out there. It's again, a lot more expensive in the UK than it is in China, however. In the UK, it's several pounds. In China, you would get one of these maybe about, possibly about 10 RMB, which is about a little over £1. So what is it? Generally speaking, these jianbing, they're made by people who have mobile stalls. So they would have the stall, sort of a trolley with the hot plate in the middle, and all of the sort of the ingredients and the dough. I think dough is the batter, I think, rather than dough, all around, so that they can push these where they're meant to be. And generally, as you can see in the this is made with a simple crepe, a simple pancake, in which they would mix an egg. You can see that from the place behind. The egg would be broken on the top, spread out, and they would be cooked together. And you can order extra things that you would like, but generally what we can see is you could have some ham, you could have some meats, you could have some lettuce. There would be a variety of sauces that would be put on. And also, one of the interesting things you can see, if you can see this picture, inside there is this crisp layer. I'm never been 100% sure exactly what this is. It's some sort of a deep fried, like a kind of crisps. And Fang Liang, if you would like to let us know what you think that is, that would be fantastic. But this adds a very crisp texture to this. And the closest thing to describe this would be, I know that many people, when you have a sandwich, it's not uncommon for people to put crisps in that sandwich, and it's a similar sort of thing here, where we've got the heat and the soft from the crepe. You maybe have some lettuce and some sweet or spicy sauces inside, and then when you bite down, there's that lovely crunch of exactly what you want. And again, because these take just a moment to cook in front of you, it's very convenient, because you can have a great amount of control about what you want to have on it. I mean, if you don't want the crispiness, just you can just say you don't want that. And if you are still learning Chinese, it is actually quite simple, because you can literally point to the things that you want or you don't want, and just wave your hand and say "Biao." I think one of the most useful words in Chinese to learn for day-to-day purposes, for things like this, would be jiga or zhiga. In Chinese they would just say jiga. So when you say jiga, it means this one or this, and you can literally point to something, say jiga, 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 and biao jiga. And literally pointing to this one, this one, this one. It's a very useful, very simple word, and somewhat memorable. As I said, you can find these in the UK in Happy Lemon. If you're in Coventry, we go to the one that's in Cannon Park, just opposite from in the Tesco. They seem quite nice there, and well, I would suggest having a go. I mean, this is that's a place you can try out some street food within the UK. Excuse me. The next one, well, we have a chat. Let me just open that one. Yeah, thank you for zhiga. This one, as I've said here, in China, again, as people say, zhiga, zhiga, zhiga. You would hear that so often in people. And I would also say, Feng Yang, thank you for saying this. This is also one of the things that is almost like a filler word for Chinese people. Say, well, there's zhiga and naga. And naga is the filler word, and naga, and they'd say that, and it's quite an unusual, very uninteresting for us. So zhiga, very, very useful word to know in Chinese, to point to something, and zhiga, zhiga, zhiga. Naga for that one. Yes. Thank you, Feng Liang. Next one. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. Why am I? Forgive me. This is going. The next one is actually my absolute favorite thing on this whole list. Now, the jianbing are they're quite flat pancakes, crepes. They're very tasty. I generally don't tend to go for them, but I know they're very, very popular. Lots and lots of people do. However, I would always try to go for this one, which is the jidang guanbing. Now, these are egg-filled pancakes, and these are responsible for me putting on quite a bit of weight while I was in China, in fact, because when I was working at a university in the southern part of a city called Taiyuan, every day I would go to the stall at the just outside the front gates of this university, and they had a fantastic Jidang Guanbing store. It's actually when I've taken my wife, who again is Chinese, when she had the Guanbing from there when she came to visit, she also believes, has stated that that was the best Guanbing that she has ever had. And I kind of miss that place, because sometimes I would even go and just grab 2 of them and have that as my breakfast, which is perhaps a little bit too much for what they are. So when I say the egg-filled pancakes, these are fantastic, and I'm not entirely sure exactly how they do it, but the difference with Jidang Guanbing and the Jianbing. So with the Jianbing, as they get the batter in the traditional crepe, this is then spread out across the hot plate to have a very thin layer. This is more of a bready pancake in a way, in that these are made from a dough, and the dough is twisted in such a way that while it is being cooked, there are layers in the pancake that are created. And as you can see in this picture, this chef is lifting some of those layers so the egg can be poured inside the pancake itself, which gives them fantastic taste, and the texture is quite doughy. And let's have a look at this. Often have this kind of pancakes as your breakfast from Fangliang. Yes, as I say, I had this kind of pancake pretty much every day when I was working there. So this is, again, something that I've never got the hang of. I've never been able to learn, but it's fascinating to watch, to see how they've taken a large dough, pull out a part of it, twist it, flatten it, put it onto the hot plate, and then lift those layers to get the egg inside. I was always impressed by it. And then, as you can see, similarly with the Jianbing above, this you can then choose different things to be put inside it. Now, this, when I was having this, the options were generally a sweet or a savory sauce, which was then put on, and there are a variety of things that you could put in. Some people would have it simply plain with some lettuce inside. You could ask for ham or bacon, or the one that we had in where I was, my go-to was liji. Now, liji is the pork tenderloin, which is I think much more used in China than we tend to use it in the UK. It's very popular with many dishes. In fact, my favorite dish in China, full stop, this would be my favorite street food. My favorite Chinese dish, like many foreign, I say foreign people, but that's what we are called in China, would be the tungsu liji. So that would be sweet and sour tungsu, and liji is the tenderloin. So tenderloin is something that is I used quite a lot in China when I was cooking, when I was eating, but I've never really used it much since I've got back to the UK. I'm not entirely sure why that is. But as I said, with the going back to the Jidang Guanbing, oops, excuse me, I've got the incorrect one there at the title. With the Jidang Guanbing, the contents put in, simply folded, and you would sort of eat it in as a pouch. It's fantastic fast food, as again, it just takes a few minutes. When I was there, this was 5 RMB for a single one. Now that, at the time, that's about 50 pence. So you can see why it's quite a little, for us, a little dangerous. So for something like this, very cheap, very fast, and people will pick them up. And this is the interesting thing again about the street food, because of the cost. You see from people from all parts of society are grabbing, we'll just go and get some. It's because of its very low cost. It's available for all, and it's something that people just want to, very convenient, so people will just grab them and go. I miss that one. I think this is the one I miss. When we look at things we miss about China, this is perhaps one of the things that I would miss most, is the Jidang Guanbing. So Let's move on. When we're looking at breakfast food, so you mentioned that this is something that people have the pancakes for breakfast. One of the other very, very popular breakfast items that's massively popular that you will see again on roadsides. You will see stalls set up specifically in the morning. People will have specific areas where they were set just for the morning, is to make youtiao. Now, youtiao are deep fried dough sticks, is I think the best. Well, that's the direct translation. They're literally, again, strips of dough which are thrown into boiling oil. They are often a little bit sweet, and you can see what they look like here. These are something that we can find within many restaurants. However, there are generally, you will find stalls set up every morning in again all over China. You will see these are in the high end districts, in the low end districts. They're everywhere. So so this is what the store will generally look like. You can see that there are large bowls of a boiling oil, which you can imagine is certainly not compliant with health and safety. But these are set up onto the sides of the road. They're put onto pavements. People can very, very easily grab them, and they will have again a large block of dough, which they can knead into sticks, into these shapes. You can see here they're a little bit twisted around, and they will be very interestingly use these very long chopsticks to cook and turn them around once they get into the boiling oil. And there is another type of youtiao. I mean, these are very simple, very tasty. Obviously, they're deep fried and oily. You can also have another type some places where there is a sort of a sugary topping put on top, which is again very tasty. And these, for each of them, they'll cost maybe 1 RMB each. So we're looking at maybe 10 pence per stick. If that, in some of these places, they are very, very cheap, very convenient. They're often paired with some rice porridge or some soy milk. So you have youtiao and soybean milk. Yeah, doujiang. Thank you. As I said here, we've got this soybean milk on this one. Those are a classic combination that you can see people at the side of the street. And again, you can see business people, you can see construction workers, everyone just stopping and grabbing some of these to eat. They're delicious, but because they're deep fried, I wouldn't particularly then the breadsticks themselves, certainly not very healthy, but they are very, very tasty. I would certainly recommend. I'd recommend everything on this list, to be honest. I think especially if you can find a good jidang guanbing. Now, let's go forward. So this one is very much a breakfast item. This is something that particularly people will have for breakfast. So the next one is very, very famous. This is something that they have high levels. There are they're gourmet kinds of baozi. There are simple, basic levels. Many people make these at home. Baozi or steamed buns are absolutely everywhere. They are so popular that Pixar indeed made I believe, an Oscar-winning short film called Bao, which is very closely related to baozi. Now, baozi, I'm sure you may have seen them before. You may have had them in a Chinese restaurant. What these are, they are a kind of dumpling. And that means it is a doughy, a bready dough, rather than the normal jiaozi or dumpling, which is more sort of a glutinous outside. This is a very bready, sort of steamed bread outside, and the filling can be almost, to be honest, there's a huge variety from sweet to savory, meat, vegetables. You could have a red bean or custard. There's a huge variety of filling, and you can also get mantol, which are basically the baozi, which have no filling, and they're just steamed bread all the way through. And you can try so many of these. That you can get, again, depending on what you're feeling like, what your dietary restrictions might be, you will be able to find a baozi for yourself. They are fascinating to see, because if I go back briefly to see, excuse me, oh dear, I've gone complete. I'm afraid I think I'm having some issues with my mouse that doesn't want to choose itself to go up and down. As you can see in this picture here, the baozi, they are generally made on these very, very large steamers, especially when you see them on the streets. There are these very sort of, about a meter or so wide bamboo steaming trays, and these can be stacked very, very high. It's very impressive to see. I mean, we might be used to going to a Chinese restaurant and seeing the small bamboos things stacked 4 or 5 high. These are much, much wider, stacked very, very high in there. You can see that people have a large amount of baozi being made, and it's amazing that they will. It's always impressive to see they know exactly which ones are which. Excuse me. But baozi, something that people enjoy, again, all through the year, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and again, just a couple of RMB each. So these are very, very cheap, very, very convenient, and you can literally, because they are being steamed, it's very, very quick and convenient for them to literally grab, generally using a plastic bag inside out, grab the baozi, put the bag back over it, and they'll hand it to you. It's super quick, super easy, super tasty. It will warm you up when it's in the middle of winter. Really enjoyable. I think it's you can tell, hopefully those of you who are watching at lunchtime have had some food already, because this is certainly making me feel a little bit hungry while I go through and go talk about these. So, as you say, these are massively popular, very traditional, and across all of the China. I'm pretty sure that this is not a regional specific dish. The next one is one of, again, very, very delicious, very quick, but this one is perhaps more connected to a particular area. This is called rou jia mo. Now, the general translation, people often might call this a Chinese burger, a kind of burger. You can see perhaps why this is called, because there is meat between a bread, sort of flat bread kind of thing. But it is quite different to what we would think of a burger in many other ways. So rou jia mo, these are generally originally from the Xi'an area. So this is sort of a flatbread bun, and the meat inside is pork. So these are filled with pork. Now this pork is a sort of slow cooked stewed pork, which is in a very spiced gravy. Now what would happen is that when you would order a rou jia mo, this is something that they would pull out a piece of the pork from the stew, as it were, from the gravy, and that would be chopped. And generally, what would happen is they would slice open the bun, chop the pork in front of you, put it in, and add a little bit of the sauce inside. And when it is done well, it is utterly delicious. I mean, the spice and have the moisture from the gravy and from the fat that's in there, put inside with the drier kind of bun. Super, again, very convenient, easy to walk around. You are generally served in these small paper pouches, so you can simply take them away. And very cheap as well, maybe 5 kwai for some of these, 5 RMB. These are, when you go around from the street food, it's it's so cheap that you want to buy more. One of the other things that I would say about Rojiamor, and I know that in Coventry, up in Fargo Village, I forget the name of the restaurant. There is a oh, forgive me if someone knows. There is a sort of Xi'an style restaurant up towards Fargo Village there that does some Rojiamor. So if you are interested in trying, you can go there. Forgive me, I forget the name, but it is again up Fargo Gosford Street towards Fargo Village. And I know that our friends of the Confucius Institute are planning to do some Rojiamor within Fargo Village in their container. So the way that this is one of the easier ways to remember the name for Rojiamor is something that my friends and myself would always discuss, is that we would almost never call them Rojiamor. We would always just say, would you like some Roger Moore, after the famous James Bond of our youth. We always seem to enjoy that pun. Roger Moore. Yeah, go and grab some food. That was a lovely one. So if you ever need to try to remember how to say Rojiamor, just think about James Bond from my childhood, Roger Moore. Similarly, when we're looking at Xi'an and that particular area, Xi'an itself, the city of Xi'an, has a fantastic food street, when there is a Muslim quarter where they do some amazing foods. But all across, all around in Xi'an area, it's very useful to look online and find some of the food streets if you are in China, to find exactly where to get some of these foods, because it's the range and the tastes that you can get are phenomenal. And one of the things that when we're visiting Xi'an, we would pair with a Rojiamor. The Rojiamor wouldn't necessarily be your full meal. You might grab some liang pi as well. Liang pi is a cold rice noodles. So these are noodles which are based from rice, and they are served cold with generally, as ever, a spicy sauce. And perhaps you can see in this picture there is some shredded cucumber, and you could have some maybe some other things that are put inside. So generally these are perhaps more popular in summer because they are served cold. So they are quite refreshing, even with that bit of spice. They're a powerful dish, but the coldness makes it quite refreshing. Now, the noodles, these are cut from a large rice flour sheet and then stirred into the bowl with these sauces. So it's an unusual texture that that's slightly different from the noodles that we would expect. And I know that we might have pasta salads and things here, but this is quite a different texture that we would expect based on this. So the dishes, they'll also be mixed up perhaps with, as I've said, some shredded cucumber, maybe some bean sprouts, perhaps some peanuts inside, which adds a lovely little crunch. I think shredded cucumber is quite a popular thing we find in a few Chinese dishes, and it's something that I never really thought of until going to China. And I would suggest using your cheese grates to shred your cucumber over certain noodle dishes. So it's a lovely, slightly different way to eat that I hadn't really experienced or used so much before I went to China. So again, with this one, I think it's important to tell the vendor exactly how much spice you would like. So if you would like it to be very spicy or not very spicy, it's important to try to communicate that. So as I've said, the buyao la, or if you want a little bit of spicy and you don't want it too spicy, you can also say bu tai la. Tai la means not too spicy. Or yi dian la is a little bit spicy. The best way to go about these, I would say, for all of this is to try to find, if it's possible, talk to local people, find if you are able to have a friend or have a guide to take you around to recommend and help you to order these. It's it makes things a lot easier. Although, as I've said before, there might be some fun just to pointing and pointing at things, saying jigger, and having spicy. So, yeah, if you want to be better with your Chinese, you could say wei la. So, a little bit spicy. Thank you, Feng Liang, again for adding to this one. Let's have a look. So, again, my mouse is not working well. So, perhaps we can come next to Tong Hu Lu. Now, these are, you can see these are, I think the closest thing we can think to this is thinking of a toffee apple, but these are candied hawthorns. Now, hawthorns are massively popular to eat in China and not something that I had eaten growing up in the UK. I can't speak for others, but this is something that with hawthorn is something that we Chinese kids are given in many different ways, through candied hawthorn such as this, but also hawthorn-based sweets. So these are a very traditional, old-fashioned food, particularly popular amongst children. As we've mentioned, they're very sweet. So they're basically hawthorns coated in the sugar syrup. They look amazing because with the sugar syrup, they're very shiny, and very colorful, very bright. And as you can see from this picture, this would not be an uncommon sight in China to see the skewers displayed in this way. So you would often find the vendors walking around with a stick, and the straw head or sort of straw man with the skewers put inside. Now, these snacks, as you can see, they also include now not simply the candied hawthorns, but many people you can see again from the previous slide, many people would also be adding other things. So at the bottom there, we've got some candied grapes. You can see there are excuse me, some satsumas or tangerines that have been put inside. I believe you can up towards the bottom there are some that have been some crushed peanuts perhaps. There was a wide variety of canned things that people can put onto candied hawthorns to sell. And again, these are just a few pence for us, maybe £1 for a skewer from some of these places. And when people are out and about, you will be very tasty, very worthwhile trying them. Now, I believe this is coming up to one of the final slides I have, is perhaps one of, I don't want to say controversial, but has divides opinion. Now, chou doufu. Chou is a very interesting word because chou means stinky. It's bad or bad smelling. Like how chou means like a very bad smell. So if your husband comes back from the gym and they've sweaty and they've gone out for drinks, they might smell so high. How toa. So chou is not a positive sort of word to describe food, but chou doufu or stinky tofu is a very widely eaten and popular dish. And the chou, the stinky word, is absolutely appropriate for this dish. You can see there, it is literally what it says on the tin. It is stinky tofu. This is what people call it. Now, it's unique amongst foods. Its selling point is how bad it smells. So these are deep fried and they are fermented tofu. Now, fermented tofu. This, one way to think of this is perhaps thinking that this is tofu that has expired or gone off. In fact, for some, there is a story that I have been told that the people who created tofu were poor, and the tofu had been very old, and they decided to cook it anyway, and they've realized it actually tasted all right despite the smell. So they're usually they're deep fried, served in like a paper container such as this, and you would add a spicy or savory sauce depending. Now, they are definitely worth trying. They are an acquired taste, and many people swear by them. Many people say that they really enjoy them, but it is difficult to get past the smell. And when you go to the street foods, or when you can see that there is when you know there is a smell, excuse me, a chodofu seller nearby, you wouldn't see it, you would smell it first. The smell is indescribable, I think, is the only way to say. It is a bad smell. It truly stinks, of something that is just off, something that just seems almost rotten. So it's difficult to get beyond that smell. As you can say, it's described. It is chodofu. It is smelly, sorry, stinking tofu, but it's popular. It is popular. So I would recommend trying. This is not something I would miss. When I say missing the foods, this is taking me back the other way from the hunger, because the smell is something that we can recall. On the university campuses, there would be sellers on the streets people would come across and sell, and this smell is all pervasive. I would not be particularly happy if someone set up a chodofu store outside my window or below my apartment. However, if you are in China, you can try it simply to say that you have. It is similar to the durian fruit. The smell is overwhelming. However, many people swear that it is worth the effort to get past the smell to try. So far, I have spoken about many different types of street food in China. These are some of the ones that I've chosen because I think either they are very interesting or they are things that I have really enjoyed tasting. Of course, there are many other kinds of street food that you can get. There is, as I've said, many cities in China have a street culture of stalls, shops, restaurants up on the streets outside. Living in Chongqing in the evening, you would see many people having sort of deep fried fish dishes. There would be sort of Korean hot plate barbecues outside. People would love to have spicy hot pot in Chongqing sitting outside. Popcorn is very, very popular. People make that outside. The ones in this picture, we can see the fried squid, very tasty. And again, in the north, roasted chestnuts, absolutely. Just like they're popular in the UK, they're very popular around in China. And especially as you get towards the winter, there are huge amounts of street food that, if you are fortunate enough to go to China, I would highly recommend trying. So if there are any questions or comments that people would have about street food, please feel free to ask them into the chat. I'm happy to see Feng Lang says your mouth is watering. My wife told me she did not want to listen to this talk today because she helped me put it together, and she didn't want to feel too hungry and miss the food from her hometown. Again, she tells me that she misses the youtiao in particular. The deep fried dough sticks are so convenient. It's something that she would, when she heads back home to China, she will very often go out and have a list of different foods to spell. So thank you, Anne. Do I prefer a specific region's food in China? Great question. I think that I would generally prefer the northern China and northeastern China food rather than southern or the western China, because I'm not a big fan of spicy food. There's a lot of really focus on spices around the southern areas, Chongqing, Chengdu, even more towards Shanghai and those areas. But when toward the northern, those more traditional, there's in some ways it's a little more similar to Western taste. So some of the dishes that we'd have, the traditional Beijing dishes, would be the kung pao chicken or the gong bao jiding that we'd have there, which does have some spice around there, but it's still the chicken and these things. The tung su liji is more in northern China, I believe, than the southern China. And when we've started to have hot pot, that was the non-spicy versions up in the north rather than the south. So that would be generally for myself. but again, a lot of the street food is common across everywhere. Some of the seafood dishes down towards the south, and some of the there's, to be honest, across China, there's such a variety of food. It's a very difficult question because many different areas have a food that I particularly enjoy. But I think, yeah, my favorite foods that I've had would be up in the northern China. I think Beijing once there was someone offered a Guangbao Chicken pizza, which was very interesting. But the Beijing duck is something I've always gone back to as one of my central and favorite dishes, and Tangsu Liji. So great question. Do you think a lot of people live on street food because the price and convenience? Yes, absolutely. It's the price. As you say, the price makes it so accessible, and the convenience. And I think that the convenience is sort of when we're looking at the variety of people, and again, when we look at the I don't want to say but the poverty divide and the higher levels of poverty and the wages that are around. The street food is very, very easy for people who have a very busy day, so they might not have time in the morning to get onto public transport, to wake up, cook a good breakfast, and then go to public transport to their jobs, which they'll have all day. So spending a few RMB on some youtiao or something similar is worth it, because the price, to be honest, it does not cost much more to eat out, or generally doesn't cost more to eat out than it would to eat in, whereas in the UK it would definitely cost more to eat out than eat in. So the price is a huge factor, and definitely the convenience. So it is many people, in the cities of China, the lifestyle is much more busy and hectic. The hours people are expected to work is much more. So the convenience is very important. For many workers, I believe they almost in sort of the 6 days a week, generally from at least say 12 hours a day. They think 10 to 12 hours a day for people in the city. The expected working times mean that any sort of convenience is really useful. And a lot of this street food you can find being cooked in local sort of 7-Eleven style supermarkets as well. You can grab things from there. It was very, very convenient. So, as I say, I miss it. Yeah, Chinese fast food, convenient, cheap. Thank you, Feng Lang. It's always good to have the Chinese perspective as well. But yeah, when with my colleagues, when we'd meet up with people, we would simply go and grab something for a few RMB. As I say, the Roger Moore's super easy. Going for breakfast, when I'd cycle to work, I'd grab the Jidang Guanbing. Say 50 pence for a good hearty breakfast is again, it's very, very cheap. I mean, so thank you all very much for today. I think it's now nearly 1 o'clock. So thank you everyone for turning in. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope you've perhaps learned something from today. I am now more hungry than I was when I started, and I'd like to remind you, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you would like to discuss or ask the Confucius Institute, remember we have our website, our email at confuciusinstitute@coventry.ac.uk. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next week. Reminder, we do a Chinese Corner every Friday at midday, which we will share on all of our public. I've just seen there is a question in the Q&A. Thank you, George. Thank you, Susan. It's good to see you. Thank you, Ash. And thank you everyone else who joined us. That is it for today. Goodbye.